And our melting technology actually reproduces a volcano. That's what it is. Our oven is like a little volcano that takes this rock, heats it up and makes it into lava.
When a volcano erupts, magma rises, lava flows, and it quickly cools into rock. But did you know that if you remelt this rock and spin it like cotton candy, you get a material with an infinite life cycle, able to insulate buildings, resist fire, and even support crop growth? This is the product most people know today as ROCKWOOL. This is Next Stop, Green Business. I'm Maria Lindarlot with State of Green, and I'm on the road across Denmark visiting companies that prove climate action and competitiveness go hand in hand. From factories to service stations to sleek HQs, every stop brings a new perspective on why green business is good business. And I'm taking you along for the ride. ROCKWOOL is a legacy business. Their first stone wool factory was established in 1937 in Hedehusene, and close to a century later, the group headquarters is still in that very same spot, and unlocking the strength of stone wool is still the company's purpose. Even so, business and product have evolved with the times, especially on the sustainability front.
Well, part of my work in joining ROCKWOOL was to sort of set up the sustainability agenda. There was a sustainability department, but it actually wasn't managed globally, so it was quite fragmented. So we decided to make a global agenda for sustainability across the ROCKWOOL group with global goals. We signed up to the UN SDG framework. We were one of the first industrial manufacturing companies to do that, so that all of our goals had to lead up and link to one of the Sustainable Development Goals.
This is Mirella Vitale, Senior Vice President of Marketing, Communication and Public Affairs at the ROCKWOOL Group. I visited her in Hedehusene, where she took me through ROCKWOOL's soon-to-be-opened Innovation Center. And innovation is key for ROCKWOOL, as their main sustainability problem is foundational to their business. How do you reduce your environmental footprint when your product is energy-intensive to produce?
The way ROCKWOOL does sustainability is that we don't make pledges, we make plans, right? So you will probably not hear me or the CEO or the head of technology go out and make a very big pledge to 2050 without knowing exactly what we're going to do. We like to have a very concrete plan. So sometimes people say, but you're not so ambitious with your goals for 2050. And we say, but it's a plan, it's not a pledge. So we know exactly what to do and how we're going to get there.
So let's take a look at some of these plans. Because even though the problem is simple in essence, it became clear during our walk that ROCKWOOL is getting at it from multiple angles. Let's start with the obvious one at the heart of the value chain: production. Melting rocks at temperatures exceeding 1500 degrees requires a lot of energy. So what do?
We've done a lot and we've made changes and trial and error as we've been progressing. I mean, I think in the beginning, it also perception in the world has changed. When I came, we spoke a lot about biofuels, we spoke a lot about gas and biogas, and finally our sort of key solution is actually electrification. Of course, that also requires that there is a clean electrical grid that you can tap into, because sometimes electrifying actually makes matters worse. If the electrical power station is coal-powered, then it doesn't help the community.
If you manage to solve the complex engineering challenge of developing large-scale electric melting technology and find a place where green electricity is available, you then have to face the local community where the factory is going to be based. And as Mirella can attest to, this can be complicated.
And when you start to start a process in permitting and building new facilities, you just see how much awareness there is in society, in particular towards factories. And even though you maybe have the feeling of doing everything right, suddenly you're faced with people in the community who feel that you're the bad guy coming into town.
This perception is something that ROCKWOOL has had to contend with, especially in regions where factories are often viewed with skepticism. But their commitment to building locally is actually tied to a green imperative, to avoid what is often energy-intensive transport of products.
We always build locally because we can't transport our products so much. So as you said, we have a factory in Switzerland. And I remember using the factory in Switzerland as a case study when I was over in the US and said, we build everywhere locally. That's the way we are. And we live and coincide with our communities.
Moving further on down the value chain from production and transport to actual use, this is where the environmental footprint of ROCKWOOL's products intersects with the positive impact it has. Because although it takes a lot of energy to produce, stone wool installations helps to reduce energy consumption in buildings, which is one of the world's most energy-consuming and valuable assets.
I think you have to start with the buildings, right? Buildings have a big value in society, both an economical value, but also a big value in terms of the energy they consume. I think. So we play an even bigger role, I think, going forward in helping reduce energy consumption. And buildings are everywhere. We work, live, play, recover, study in a building.
Buildings are integral to our daily lives, and the impact of a well-insulated building extends beyond energy use. ROCKWOOL also emphasizes the acoustic and fireproofing properties of their product. And so, in Mirella's view, improving buildings is more than just necessary maintenance. It's an investment towards the quality of life.
In terms of ROCKWOOL and ROCKWOOL's products, the green business is tied also to the economy. It clearly is, because again, buildings are everywhere. We all use a building, no matter what we're doing. And I believe that today, in today's society more than ever, also funding towards improving people's buildings is going to continue because they realize what impact a building has on people's lives.
Additionally, stone wool can be infinitely recycled. So in the end, you have a product that is durable and energy efficient, despite its energy-intensive production process.
When our product exits the gate, of course, it has consumed a lot of energy to make the product. But of course, over its entire life cycle, it actually helps reduce energy consumption in society and actually pays back a lot more than what it takes away. And then our product is circular. So it's infinitely recyclable. So it comes back and can be recycled into new product. So at the end of the day, considering the entire life cycle of the product, it's actually less energy intensive over the entire life cycle than you would imagine.
Making their product infinitely recyclable has been a key part of ROCKWOOL's sustainability plan. They put a big emphasis on innovation, and as Mirella points out during our trip around the Innovation Center, they even have a dedicated area with a pretty funny name.
We have a little area that we call Seventh Heaven, where the engineers can play around with some ideas and they come up with lots of interesting concepts, and sometimes some of those are sort of actually end up being a product that we sell.
Their horticultural substrate, Grodan, is a great example of how the innovation that comes with pursuing the green transition and extending the life cycle of products can bring new business opportunities with it.
The horticultural substrate that I was talking about started like that all those years ago, in just an engineer, because he had seen some stone wool that had been left out where some sort of grass had grown on the product. And he thought that was very interesting and said and it was stone wool that had been discarded because it was not of the good enough quality, right? Because it's moisture resilient. But then you can actually engineer the fibers another way to make them moisture absorbent, so they hold the water. That had been discarded because it was for a building, but then suddenly we realized it could be utilized, or we realized, I wasn't part of that journey. It's before my time.
The commitment to harnessing the life cycle of the product is also prevalent further downstream in ROCKWOOL's value chain. Through their program RockCycle, they take back stone wool material from construction, renovation, and demolition sites and recycle it in their production processes. However, the feasibility of such a program depends on factors outside of ROCKWOOL's immediate control.
It's not easy everywhere. We can offer it in many countries, but we would like to see it used a lot more. And that's simply because regulation is not there yet. And not everybody does things for the sake of the greater good. Sometimes it requires a little bit of a nudge to change behavior. So we are in favor of regulation, sort of pushing that agenda a little bit more. Because as long as it's cheaper to bring things to landfill, then it's hard to sort of convince people that they should do otherwise.
Now, when I asked Mirella about ROCKWOOL's approach to solving these challenges, she very matter-of-factly stated that whether we're talking about developing electrical melters or making ROCKcycle available in 24 countries, it basically comes down to collective decisiveness.
I think the part of our decision making that when we decide to do something, we go all in is probably the most exciting thing, right? Because we don't sit around and say, oh, this is hard. Yes, it's hard, but let's figure out a way. And we work together. I think that technology, finance, myself in the sort of more external facing world, we work very well together so that we're all aligned and running in the same direction.
So how do you translate this determination to the outside world, where arguments about the cost of doing green business often prevail? It's simple. You assert the costs of not doing it.
There is a lot of discussion as whether the sustainability agenda is expensive. I know that's what a lot of people say, but it depends. What is the cost of not doing it, right? Isn't that more expensive? That's what I try to say to people. What is the cost of us not making resilient homes? The cost of a construction being destroyed in a fire or being destroyed because of bad weather.
Perhaps the clearest signal that ROCKWOOL believes in the competitiveness of sustainability is that even after nearly a century, stone wool is still their only product type.
Yeah, I mean, we would, if we thought there wasn't a future for, a sustainable premium product, you'd probably look at diversifying. And we are very firm in staying on our trajectory. Yeah.
Just as stone wool has stood the test of time, for ROCKWOOL, the green agenda isn't a passing phase. It's part of building a legacy fit for the next century.
So the cost to society and the cost of not doing it and not having the green transition, I think is way more expensive for all of us in the long term than the one we are doing today. So I don't see us moving away from the green agenda. I know ROCKWOOL is not.
Thanks for joining me and Mirella on the trip through ROCKWOOL's value chain. ROCKWOOL shows what you can achieve with one powerful material. At our next stop, Danfoss, it's about stitching together thousands of solutions to power competitive decarbonization. I hope you'll join us.